Hey everybody. I'm gonna give some neat little lessons here about carburetors. So anyone who doesn't want to learn a damn thing about carburetors, go ahead and scroll on. This is gonna get okay. So when you're at idle, you've got idle mixture circuit. So here's your idle mixture circuit screw on this Mikuni carburetor. Now, there's a whole lot of stuff going on with the idle mixture circuit, and all it is mixing a little fuel and air to get the right stoichiometric ratio at idle. Now, it's actually in service all through the RPM range, but when you're at idle and your throttle is closed, here's your little circuit right here. So, if that screw is on the engine side of the carburetor, it's a fuel bleed screw. If that screw is over here on the airbox side of the carburetor, it would be an air bleed screw. And sometimes it can be down here as a fuel bleed screw, or it can be over here as an air bleed screw, or sometimes it'll be here as an air bleed screw, or even up here as an air bleed screw. And sometimes it's up here as a fuel bleed screw. Or in this case, it's right there. Come on, refocus. Come on, can you focus? As a fuel bleed screw. It's right there, that blur right there. Now, that's true of every carburetor. That's not just a Mikuni carburetor thing. God, will this thing focus? Anyway, that's all carburetors. If it's on the engine side of the carburetor body, it's a fuel bleed screw. If it's on the airbox side of the carburetor body, it's an air bleed screw. So, to richen it up, you turn that screw in to reduce the amount of air, if it's an air bleed screw. If it's a fuel bleed screw, you turn that screw out to richen it up, because it's a fuel bleed screw. All right, so if you want to richen it up, on this screw, you turn it out. On this screw, you turn it in. If it's an air bleed screw, you turn it in to richen it. If it's a fuel bleed screw, you turn it out to richen it. So you need to know whether you've got an air bleed screw or a fuel bleed screw. Now, there's one exception to this hard and fast rule, and that is the Zhikov carburetor. And that's why I went and got myself a Zhikov carburetor. Now, I've had this carburetor for a long time, and oddly, the basic rules still apply. So what they did, you see these two little holes in the front? If we follow that passage right across there, and it comes around back over here, and the idle mixture screw is this silver screw right here, and it's an air bleed screw, even though it's on the engine side of the carburetor. But the only reason it's there is because these weird guys brought this hole through this casting. Come on. Boy, this thing isn't focusing very well. They brought the hole from the front side of the carburetor all the way across the carburetor body to the back side, and they got it adjusting over here. But it is an air bleed screw, even though it's on the engine side of the carburetor. These were on East German motorcycles. I don't even know what brand, whether they're MZs or something Russian. I don't know exactly. But this is the exception to the rule. So like every rule is going to have an exception of one sort or another. In this case, the rule that this carburetor in my hand breaks is that your idle mixture screw, being on the engine side of the carburetor, is supposed to be a fuel bleed screw, but in this case, it's actually an air bleed screw. This Zhikov carburetor with a remote float will, I'll probably end up using it on something just for the weirdness of it. Anyway, answers to questions that no one asked about how to determine whether the screw in your carburetor is an air bleed screw or a fuel bleed screw.